with Faraz Shaukutali.
And top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And of course we broadcast on TV1 and also on the internet, www.tv1.lk. Press the live button. And we are of course part of the Capital Maharaja Group. Now then, this morning there's intense interest in the Presidential Commission of Inquiry looking into the issuance of bonds. There is some speculation that yet another interesting person, a witness, is set to give evidence this morning, and unfortunately we don't have a name. It could be that other interesting person who was in charge of the central banker in charge of the purchases of these bonds at the EPF, Mr. Saman Kumara. We're not entirely certain if it's Mr. Saman Kumara who's going to be there this morning, but certainly the lawyers, the legal people there, and the media, all talking about an interesting personality who is due to give evidence this morning. We hope to be joined on the telephone by Newsfirst's own Zulfiq Farzan, who is been diligently following proceedings at Holstorf. And let's see if we can get him on the phone just as he's leaving home to get to the commission on time. Let's see, have we got Zulfiq Farzan on the phone now? We haven't got Zulfiq Farzan yet, so I shall introduce our guest this morning. Sri Lanka this week, at the weekend, we've been told, we've woken up in short to the information that over 36,000 lines of information has been leaked from one of Sri Lanka's banks, and the customer details, including balances and all sorts of other sensitive data, has been leaked. And we're joined on the set by Asela Waidelanka, a cybersecurity expert who has made his case several times on our network on the same subject, cybersecurity. Very good morning to you, Asela Waidelanka.
Very good morning, Faraz, and thank you for having me.
Isn't it astonishing that we speak about these things, cybersecurity, and then we are met with this information that banks, part of the bank's database seems to have, security seems to have been breached. Do you have any more information on this thing? Is it something in-house? Is it some attack from Nigeria or Africa? What is it? Is it very bad?
Well, first of all, I think this is something we've reiterated in the program as well as several other forums. This is the world we live in today. We live in a world of data breaches, of leakages, of attacks, of instances where data is compromised, corrupted, or altered. That being said, Faraz, the information that I have, of course, is whatever is privy in the public domain. And from what I gathered, and that is on newspaper reports, that this information has been leaked, and there were important people's accounts and account information that has been leaked. And from the reports that we are getting, we can confirm it was not an attack externally, and probably some oversight internally.
Right. We'll come back to the data breach and cybersecurity. We're joined by Zulfiq Farzan. Very good morning to you, Zulfiq. Hello.
Good morning, Faraz.
Very good morning, Zulfiq. We are calling you to find out if you have any further information as to who this surprise guest is going to be. Some of the newspapers are speculating that the former finance minister may be summoned this morning. Do you have any information, Zulfiq?
Well, Faraz, we cannot be for certain if the former finance minister is going to be at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry today, but there were some speculations going on. Some even say that it's the former dealer at the EPF who might be there, who is at the center of this whole bond scam, and some even say that it might be some other senior official who might be connected to this entire incident who will be giving evidence today before the commission. But we cannot be for certain who this individual or this mysterious individual is going to be. So once the doors open at the commission, we will find out who this individual is.
Wonderful. What's the general feeling there, the ambience there at the Commission of Inquiry on a daily basis when all these people trot along and under oath give evidence of what actually happened in this in Bond Gate?
Well, Fawaz, we've got a lot of new evidence coming out surrounding this whole Bond Gate, and especially transactions in the secondary market where government securities are being dealt by certain parties, masking the real beneficiary. And according to the Attorney General, this is a pattern that has been designed at the expense of the EPF. So with these information coming to light, the Attorney General's department appears to be very stern and very strong with how they're gathering the evidence. And it is clear that the Commission is keen to know every single minute detail that is happening around the bond issue, so they can complete their recommendations and hand it over to the respective personnel for further action. And it must be noted that Deputy Senior Solicitor General Dafurati Libera once mentioned before the Commission that once the findings are done, they will be filing indictments against everyone responsible.
That's wonderful to hear in terms of transparency and accountability and responsibility. Zulfik, one final question. Is there any truth that we may have a witness who will come in and say that various monies have been paid on a regular basis to a senior government official by somebody involved in the Bond saga, in the Bond Gate?
We've heard whispers at the Commission about this, but we cannot be certain if there is going to be a witness. However, it will be really surprising if we actually have a witness who would testify to a certain claim that is going up the chain.
Wonderful. Zulfik Farzan, we wish you well. You better get cracking then, and do let us know, and hopefully we'll be able to share that information as to who this witness is likely to be this morning as soon as Zulfik Farzan reaches the Commission of Inquiry and sends us a message. Thank you very much, Zulfik. And thank you. Asela Waidilankara. Now, do you think that what's happened? I mean, these people's personal data seems to have been flying out of the computer systems of the bank. But more to the point, what was the bank trying to do with these with the data? What were they trying to do? Were they selling it on to somebody else to do some direct marketing? What was it doing?
Once again, Faraz, like I said, I'm not privy to all of the details, but what we must highlight here is, and what the important point that we must note as organizationals, as leaders of organizations, management, senior management, so on, that we must ensure that employees of an organization have access to the information that is required for them. Basically, there is a quantum of information that is required by an employee to do their job.
So you're talking about sort of a need-to-know basis?
Absolutely.
So if HR will generally only need so much. They don't really need to know bigger than that.
Taking the example of this bank, let's say a person in HR would not require information or details of maybe, let's say, the top customers. So that's a point where you have to take a call within the organization, within the organizational framework, who has access to what. Because Faraz, it's like this. A lot of people require a lot of information to do their jobs. From the security guard in the front to the CEO and the board. There are a lot of information that you use, that you need on a day-to-day basis to perform organizational duties. The proof of the pudding is when you have a formal structure and when you have a communicated framework on how information is shared, who has access to which information, and in the event that an information that you are not supposed to have is given to you, what is your response? And that's like a discussion that the organization itself has to take in terms of what's going on.
How do you think this happened? How did you think obviously the bank holds its data in, shall we call it a mainframe, or in central, I know that's a very old-fashioned mainframe.
Very old-fashioned, Faraz, but it's good.
Right. So the bank stores its data in a central place. Now, you have somewhere along the chain, somebody is requesting for some information for marketing purposes, to let all these wonderful top-end customers know of some special offer, right? So it requests for let's say the email addresses or the contact details. And so when they're pressing the buttons, surely the central data holding place should be able to say, hang on, all you need are the contact details, not the bank balances and how much in your debts and your credits and all that sort of thing.
They've hit the nail on the coffin, basically. Again, why would if you say that this is for a marketing purpose, why would a marketing person be given access to the entire quantum of information, which is very sensitive? Now, Faraz, I'm sure an organization like this, when you look at a payroll, I don't think many people would have access to a payroll, even in your group that you work for, which is confidential information. And when you take a bank, the bank is built on trust. Obviously, this information is sacrosanct, because people's data, people's information, and these are very private data, should be guarded as gold, because we live in an age of data. We live in an age where information is power, and major organizations, not even in Sri Lanka, all across the globe, they hold on to a heap of information about an individual. Sometimes how much an organization would know about us would surprise us, because they know who we are, they know what we do, they know sometimes, obviously, in terms of a financial institution, they know how much money we have, they know our financial status, they know, for security purposes, they know your mother's maiden name. I mean, these are the quantum of information that they hold on to. And if so, then they have a fiduciary duty, a duty of care, so to say, to guard that information properly, to hold on to that information, and to make sure that information is distributed in such a manner that only, like you said, a need-to-know basis.
Right. Now, this last week, I'll come back to that in a moment, but this last week, couple of weeks now, a sort of major concern has been about the national payment platform. And we had finally we had last week the national payment platform getting into action in terms of the customs and the banks. The customs wanted a system put in place, and where they needed to talk with the banks. And finally last week the matter got going, and we had the Minister Eran Wickramaratne who confirmed this thing. Let's just have a quick listen to Minister Wickramaratne.
The Minister of Finance and myself, we took a decision that all banks should be basically immediately connected directly to customs. And I've just received the news that that system will go live this week, which is really very, very rapidly done. And I think it augments well for the future. There had been a delay of about a year and a half, and the delay may have been caused by there being competing proposals to actually run the system.
There you are. That was actually last week, and the system is now live and well. During that whole process, Asela, it came to light that the central bank was absolutely insistent that they ought to be the regulator. And now when we look at this breach at this other bank, and the potential damage that it can do. Isn't it, do you as an industry professional, do you agree that in the absence of a Data Protection Act, in the absence of a direct privacy law here in this country, that the next best thing would be for an organization like the central bank, who in this case is the regulator, but also owns part of the company that actually runs the national payment platform? We can say it because it's, it's state and commercial bank owned, the Lanka company. How essential is it in this ambience for the central bank to be involved?
Okay, there were a couple of questions there, but I'll have to correct you quickly. So, first of all, the NPP, or National Payments Platform, is a flagship project under ICTA. Customs clearing framework, or the online customs payment platform, was done under Lanka Clear.
Yeah.
Now, Lanka Clear is an entity that has a co-holding with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, as well as all of the commercial banks,
yes,
as well as
the state banks. Yes.
So that was done as a project under Lanka Clear for the clearance of customs. So I just thought I'd clarify that for you as well. Talking about Data Privacy Act, you are spot on. Ideally, in any other country or democracy, when we have the Freedom of Information Act coming in, the supplementary legislation that comes in is the Data Privacy Act.
Yeah.
And right now we have a situation in this country where we do not have a working piece of data privacy legislation. That leaves a massive lacuna in the law for us. Because, like I mentioned, organizations, without your knowledge, with your knowledge, without your knowledge, hold on to a large quantum of information about you. And given the fact that there might be a breach in these organizations, because we've not, if you look at around the world, for example, I take the Target hack that happened. Now, Target is a massive supermarket chain in the United States, and they got hacked. And about 100 million customers' personal information, credit card information, email addresses, and payment patterns, and all that was leaked out to the dark web. Now, let's now take a look at the situation in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
You have major telco companies who own a large quantum of your data. You have banks, you have other institutions that you interact with on a daily basis who hold on to a large chunk of your personal data. Now, assuming, for example, when you leave, let's say, a financial institution and go to another, I close my bank account and I go to another organization to open a bank account. How sure are we that our data is destroyed in Bank 1 and not maintained for other purposes? And this is why you need a governing legislation. This is why you need a governing law within the country that operates, that governs how data is managed. Individual personal data is managed. For example, another example I can bring is your data carriers, your telecommunication providers, service providers. They have access to your location data. They can fairly accurately figure out where you work, where your residence is at, and probably what route you take to go to office as well, based on the information and the tower information.
Yeah.
So that's an information that they sit on. Obviously, as a large organization, in this day and age of data, you are going to monetize that data. You are going to not sit on that data and consider your fiduciary responsibility of protecting that data. You will, to a certain degree, but again, you will think of how you're going to monetize that data. For us, there's been an industry that has sprung up because of this data called big data. So literally, there are organizations, there are institutions, there are products and services that are aimed specifically at harnessing the data that these organizations are sitting on for purposes.
Have you noticed that if you go and try and book a hotel on, let's say, one of the online booking services, and you've done that, or you've even only made an inquiry, all of a sudden, this has happened to me, all of a sudden, I was trying to do it for a friend actually, and I made an inquiry online to one of these things, and all of a sudden I get emails giving me all sorts of special offers along of hotels in that area that I was looking for. Now, this couldn't have been a coincidence. Somebody's watching.
Somebody's always watching, Faraz, and that's, I think, even when you're browsing online, when you're using your data, When you're online, in the web, anywhere else for that matter, you must know someone is always watching. And you must be aware of the online trail you leave behind. And again, we are coming back to the point of how this data is managed. Now, when you look at developed democracies, the Western countries, they have very strong data privacy legislations locally, as well as they've aligned themselves to international legislation, or especially in the European Union as well as the US. They've aligned themselves to international benchmark legislation that ensures the protection of individual data. Such is the legislation that big players like Google, for us, we are paling in comparison to the information that Google knows about us.
Indeed.
That's not, we must shudder to think how much Google,
because it keeps tab, doesn't it, of what you're searching for, and it's trying to sort of predict what you are looking for, and so on.
Not only that, Faraz, it is even listening to you when you are not even thinking. There are certain features that are there, that even when you're not using your smartphone, the big guys are listening. The big companies are always listening.
When you talk about that, I suddenly this came to my mind in the matter of Keith Noyer, who was of course a journalist who was attacked, kidnapped and then attacked, and then dumped back. But I remember in the dead of the night, his phone was on, and his editor then at Nation, his editor-in-chief, resorted to contacting the telco and found out where the signal was coming from, and they then found out it was coming from somewhere near Dumpe, which is a favorite dumping ground for various bodies that had been attacked and so on. But anyway, this GPS technology came into play during the hunt of those several hours for Keith Noyer. Happily, I suppose the editor-in-chief had disclosed that to the authorities, and lo and behold, Keith Noyer was dumped near his house to be safe and live another day. But I said, what should the banks do? What should this bank do now? What should they do? There's this list that has got account numbers, the deposit details. It's 36,000 lines of information, which is only peanuts, or just the top of the iceberg, not even really the top. What should they do? How do you put those customers to bed?
Well, first of all, they need to review all of their internal mechanisms. And I need to make an appeal to some of the organizations, the head of organizations, the chairmen and whatnot, who's watching. Just because an organization is compliant to an international benchmark, therefore there are so many international benchmarks that these blue chip companies are part of. PCI DSS, ISO, British Standard, there are so many. But I think organizations, the top management must realize, first of all, that you being compliant to these certifications, they're good. They're good in terms of prestige. They're good in terms that you are recognized globally as having benchmark data privacy standards. But just because you achieve a benchmark or just because you achieve a certification does not mean that your organization is 100% secure.
That's a very important point you're making.
So that is something that the board needs to take into an account of any organization. Also, for us, what we must understand is IT is no longer the prerogative of an IT department. IT is no longer an IT manager's problem.
Right.
Because data and information and that we are now in a digital age, it's everybody's responsibility to ensure that the data is protected. So that means when something like this occurs, one must not point fingers to the IT managers or the IT leadership of a company and say, this is your fault. You must make sure that, systems are there, we must buy stuff.
So there's collective responsibility even at corporate level.
Absolutely, Faraz. This discussion of cyber security, data security, information security, this must leave the IT rooms. This must leave the IT meeting rooms. It must be taken up at board levels, CEOs, CFOs, chief risk officers. I mean, this is a collective responsibility for us that cuts through the entire breadth of the organization. This is not one single individual problem. Because when we talk about data security or cyber security, one thing we always preach, our mantra is, it's people, process, and technology. Doesn't matter as far as if you're going to buy, in your words, the latest mainframes or the latest firewalls.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter for us, because there's always a weak link in any situation, and that is the people. And you must understand, you must educate the people of your organization how important they are and how important they are part of the process. And the other fact is the processes. Like I mentioned, an organization should have a framework that it looks at very aggressively on how you manage the data, how you manage information within the organization, how information flows within an organization. Like I mentioned before, what are the information you need to do your job, and how are you going to segregate that according to the job that you're doing? The security guard in the front desk does not need the information that the cashier needs. The cashier's information is not required to the finance manager. The finance manager's information is not required to an IT manager. And maybe at a different level, the CEO and the board requires a different level of information.
Yeah.
And it is how you classify this information, it is how you grade this information. If that is what you need to figure out. That could be through a standard, that's very good. If you have a standard, if you're looking at something, very good. But then don't stop there. Let me tell you another example, Faraz, where people have failed the process. And I brought this up previously as well in one of the programs. When you look at Iranian nuclear facility, and actually the US designed a specific malware to attack the Iranian nuclear centrifuges, to basically turn them off and create damage. The weak link was that that entire nuclear facility was not connected to the internet. They just had what's known as a local area network, a network within the facility that was not connected to the outside world. How they managed to get this malicious malware or malicious virus into the facility was they just identified an engineer, and they just dropped a USB off to this chap, and he just plugged it into the system, and then the rest is history. So you see, precautions were taken, measures were there, but then the people failed. So this is what we need to look at. There are three pillars that hold data privacy in place. Don't forget your people. Don't forget your process. Technology plays only one part of it.
So PPT, people, process, and technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I hope all the CEOs and chairmen and group directors and all the top notches take note of what young Asela Wadilankar is saying. He's young, but he's obviously knows a thing or two about what you're saying. But really, very quickly, what should this bank do? Should they change everybody's account numbers?
No, I think, listen, first of all, this is not the first time that it's happened in the world. And
it won't be the last time.
And it won't be the last time. And this is what when I mentioned in the start of the program also, for us, this is going to be a new reality. Lloyds Bank, the Bank of England, Lloyds, has estimated for the next 5 years, around the world, companies will lose $120 billion in cybersecurity related incidents. $120 billion for us. More than what we are worth as an economy. So this is the world we live in. So the bank must take into account, this particular bank must take into account that this is not how it's happened. There is a way of dealing with it as a crisis. There is a way of communicating it to the customers, and even to the customers I appeal, listen, this is no point of panicking. Taking your money out from institution A and putting it back into institution B is not the answer. But certainly, from an organizational point of view, they really need to take a hard look at themselves and what they need to do. Also, maybe in a communication point of view, they need to have a chat with maybe their top customers as to what they happen. Because right now, when speculation is rife, that's where people make mistakes. When speculation is rife and when information is not available clearly and concisely to individuals, that's when mistakes are made.
Do you think all these people are sort of sitting there, biting their nails and saying, I wonder if the Nigerian fraudsters are going to get to my account and transfer my money wherever?
Absolutely not, Faraz, because let's be fair. Right now, one of the most secure places when you take all of the industries is the finance sector. Because it is their job to ensure that information is secure and information is protected. That being said, you yourself must educate yourself as an individual on what is happening in the world. Faraz, if you get an email right now saying that you have $1 million,
Yeah.
I'm a Nigerian prince,
Yeah.
and my father has died, and I'm inheriting $1 million,
Yeah.
and you need to transfer me $3,000 so I can get that from the bank.
Yeah.
You need to think about that, Faraz. That's common sense.
You need
Because
to press the delete button.
press the delete button, because you should not,
Yeah.
in terms of your own data privacy, should not reveal that information. Because Faraz, one thing, data privacy starts with you as well. You decide what you need to share online.
Right.
Because I see so many times, and one more thing, on social media,
Yeah.
people sharing information that is considered private
Yeah.
on a public space. When somebody's traveling, they'll put their check-in boarding pass.
Yes, it's a bit ridiculous.
A bit ridiculous. When yesterday or day before, I saw somebody had got a credit card, and they're just covering up the numbers and just putting yes, new credit card. You should not do that.
Right.
Faraz, social media is for a certain purpose. It's done great help to many people, but there are certain types of information that you do not share, and as individuals, as users, as a community, we must make ourselves aware of that as well.
Thank you. So people, process and technology, some bywords for this morning. Aselawadi Lanka, thank you very much for popping by and sharing your expertise with us, and reassuring these customers whose data has been breached that it is being handled, will be handled, but you need to be careful yourself. That's it then from Newsline on Monday, the 24th of July 2017. Take care. God bless.